Hi, Samantha. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. Um, so, for those of you that are watching this, this is Samantha Lawrence. Sam and I we've known each other for several years now because we taught yoga together and have gotten to know each other even more over the past few months, I would say. I've done some of her awesome workshops. She actually did an energy reading on me. Um, at the start of quarantine, which was really cool. So she can talk to you maybe about that a little bit as well. And then she's going to be talking about anchoring today. But before I let her introduce herself, I just want to talk about something because right before we hit record on this interview, Samantha and I were talking just about everything that's going on in the world today and how heavy it feels and just our roles and responsibilities in creating a better place for everyone around here right now. And so I just wanted to honor that, this is something that even though we are talking about wellness this week, and even though that is the focus of this wellness challenge is looking inward, I really view this as a both and type of thing, right? We need to be doing the inner work and we need to be doing some of the outer work to help ourselves. And so I just wanted to speak to that because I think it's something that we need to call out the elephant in the room, as Samantha said earlier when we were talking. We've got to call out the elephant in the room. We have to really address the fact that there's a lot of people that are hurting right now. And it might seem kind of selfish to talk about some of these techniques, but I mentioned this in a video earlier this week on Monday, I believe. But I was just talking about the fact that I really do believe that in order for us to be able to hear other people's pain and trauma, we need to also be doing the work to heal our own individual pain and trauma. Because if we aren't doing that work and if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't go out and listen, because we're going to be in this sympathetic fight or flight response, and we're not going to be able to access our frontal lobe and our rational thought, and we're not going to be able to be in a compassionate state. And so while some of this work does feel a little privileged and a bit selfish, I really would encourage you all, as we're thinking about this and as we're getting to the end of this challenge, to keep looking at this as a way to do the work on yourself so that you can go out and then be a part of the larger community. So I just wanted to say that because, it's just, it's the elephant in the room, right? So, yeah. And so with that, I'm going to have Samantha, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. I was like, don't you know what to do? This is the point where this is where you introduce yourself, Sam.
That was, yes, exactly.
So
Um, well,
hold on.
and thank you for that intro, because yeah, like you said, it's hard not to think about for everyone right now. And I actually think that what we're talking about today really is relevant in the larger scheme of everything as we downregulate our nervous system, and we're giving ourselves permission to show up for the larger community and for the world. So I'm Samantha Lawrence, and I am a holistic life and business coach. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I'm also an energy intuitive. And yeah, I work with a variety of people, whether it's wellness or holistic practitioners on their businesses, all the way to people who are just trying to heal from the inside out in mind and body and soul, and really come from a place of soul-centered or heart-centered living, so we become a little bit more whole and healed. So yeah, that's what I do, and I'm really excited to be talking about anchoring today. A lot of
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people might not know what anchoring is, so I'm really excited to be talking about this today.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, I know I think I have an idea of what it is, but I haven't actually talk to you about it specifically, like what it is. And so I'm actually excited. So will you just explain to me, give me some knowledge on what this is?
Yeah, so anchoring is a term that comes from neuro-linguistic programming, which sounds really, really fancy, but it's essentially a technique or a science that comes from neuroscience, from how our brain works, specifically with our senses. So, a little background on this. Whenever you smell something, whenever you see something, whenever you hear something, your brain downloads that and almost imprints it in your brain. So that's why when you hear a certain song, that brings you all the way back to your high school breakup and you can like feel yourself in it, right? You're like in the car, you're like, you know exactly where you are, you can see his face. You're taken back because it was imprinted through sound, through the olfactory system, which is, you know, intaking in an auditory sense. And so what anchoring is using that as a tool to do the reverse. So there's a lot of negative imprints that happen, right? We see something and we get triggered by it. We get a reaction. We might feel anxious. We might feel sad. We might feel frustrated, right? And that impacts our nervous system, whether it's like a specific location or a visual, or maybe it's a specific scent, right? Like you when you go to your grandma's house, there's like a very specific scent to it, right? And maybe you're brought back to like dinner and her making pie, but maybe it's also the reverse, where maybe it was an event that wasn't so great and your body holds on to our emotions. Our physical and our emotional well-being are connected because of this principle.
I actually talked about that yesterday,
Oh my God, perfect.
a little bit in the talk when we were talking about like someone who works with large cats at the zoo might not have the same reaction when they see a mountain lion in the wild as like I would, because I would be terrified, right? So it's like it all comes back to like the memories and the associations we have with these different things and sounds and objects that can trigger us in one way or the other.
And this is happening all the time. Like to your point, it could be, you know, tomorrow when I go to work, but it can a lot of the times be from childhood. And so a lot of childhood traumas or experiences are held in the body. Now we think of trauma kind of with a capital T, of like a car accident, right? That's something that, you know, you might hear the sounds, or like post-traumatic stress. A lot of that, it has to do is because our body and our senses have imprinted that. And in addition to the physical part of the body, it creates an emotional response. So what anchoring can do is also rewire the brain for the positive. So I can literally utilize scent. I can utilize sound. I can utilize visuals, even taste, right? All of our senses, feeling, touch. I can utilize that to rewire and train my brain to have a happy response. Maybe that's joy or calming or contentment or laughter or like something funny, right? You can literally train your body to have a different response to something else by training it. So it's just another tool in your toolbox that you can pull out that allows you to down-regulate your nervous system and to choose essentially in a very quick moment joy, happiness, contentment, laughter, versus if you're feeling anxious or frustrated or angry or, you know, I truly believe that all emotions, right? This is really just regulating our emotions and our nervous system. All emotions come from a place of either love or fear, right? Anger, doubt, shame, guilt, a lot of that's coming up lately, right? Is all a form of fear. And all the above, right? On the opposite end of the ladder, joy, contentment, love is all a place of love. We can choose where we want to be on the ladder and use our body, this like skin suit that we are in, to do so. And so, especially for like the skeptics who, you know, are like, I need to see it, or I need to know the science behind it. Like I love being able to understand on an egoic level or in a wisdom level and on a soul level. And I think that this practice allows you to do both. It utilizes the physical body and what's happening neurologically to create change emotionally, but then also to show up on a soul level as well. And so that's why this has just been really powerful, at least for me lately. So yeah.
Well, and I you probably know this, but I'm a former science teacher. So someone is at my door. I think it's probably the UPS guy. But anyway, I'm going to just ignore that for now. But in case you heard the doorbell, speaking of sounds that are anchoring, usually when I hear the doorbell, I get very excited because it means there's a package at my front door. But I don't know where, I was a science teacher prior to being a school counselor. And so I love the mind-body connection and like the science behind all of that, because I think it's really powerful and I think it's helpful. Now my husband's going to check and see who's at the door. But I do think it is very powerful and we need to be hearing the squeaking. That's my front door. No one can sneak into my house ever. Um, see,
But I mean, honestly,
Amazon
it's a
right
really
there.
good example. It's true. Like you hear the doorbell and you have a response because it's like a habit that's like imprinted, right? And to your
Mm-hmm.
point, like blending the science, yeah, the mind body connection allows us to add that little third component, which is the soul connection, right? Which is also why you do what you
Mm-hmm.
do. And
Yeah.
that's wellness. It's taking care of what you're in and not acting like they're all separate.
Mm-hmm. And
So
that's why I love bringing the science in, because science to me, it all just makes sense. And then when you learn like it, and for me, especially when I was working with teenagers, when I would explain the science to them, they would be like, okay, she's not just like crazy hippie lady that's trying to make me breathe. Like there's actually a reason that she's teaching me breath work right now, or there's these different reasons. And so I think it brings everything together, like you said, because it's not just the body, it's not just the mind, it's not just, it's like our sense of smell is connected to our brain. Our brain is part of our body, our emotions, there's so many things. It's all one. And so we have to look at this as, there's different ways to access the same thing, whether you're doing it through like sound healing, like we talked about yesterday, whether you're doing it through the sense of smell, through like, your touch, like you were talking about, like, or whether it's something like acupuncture where you're, whatever, there's different ways to access the same system, but it's all one big system.
And I love what you just mentioned, like using your senses also, you need to recognize that every human being has a more dominant way of learning or of imprinting in the brain.
Mm.
It's why there's kinesthetic learners, why
Oh
there's
my
visual
God.
learners, and why there's
Mm-hmm.
auditory learners. We pick up information and we store it in a way that just we're designed, right? And it's the same thing actually happens with anchoring. So there are many forms of anchoring, right? I could use smelling an essential oil. I could use even just like tapping my fingers together in a kinesthetic or a touch way. Or I could maybe play a specific song or hear a mantra or an effort or something that is more auditory. And what I speak to my clients with, and when I'm writing a program on this as well, is to first go to the technique that you learn by first. So I'm a very visual person, but I would also say part of it's also auditory. And so those are the ways that I kind of started with. And then you can also learn how to enhance all of it, right? All of your senses. And that's why I'm always so attracted to yoga, because you're getting all of it in one experience as well. And in a way, yoga also is a form of anchoring. You're holding a posture, you're experiencing something in maybe in an emotional way, or you're releasing the body. And sometimes when you're releasing the physical body, you can release a lot of what's been imprinted or that's been stuck with you for a long time. So maybe you hear a specific song that the teacher is playing, or they say they hear or see something, or a shape that they've associated with. It's really interesting, but I think it's also, yeah, like how do you learn? And that's a really
Mm-hmm.
great place to start, as to, okay, how do I want to learn anchoring as a tool? Do I want to try the visual first, see if it works, and then maybe auditory? And with anything, repetition also helps in retraining ourselves to learn and pick that stuff up. So
Yeah.
yeah, fascinating.
That's so funny that you're saying that, because I am such a kinesthetic learner,
Mm.
which is part of why I love yoga. And I even talk about that in my yoga classes. I talk about like, you're in warrior two, be big, take up space. You are a warrior. And so, there are times where if I've been going into a meeting or something that was like, I was a little scary, I will actually go back to thinking about like, I am a warrior, I'm a badass, I can do this. Because I have that association in my body, and I didn't even realize I was doing that at the time. One of the techniques I often taught students was I would teach them the finger mantra, and have them. And so then they could be in class and they could be doing this. And I didn't even realize that was a kinesthetic
Well,
anchoring way.
let's use that as an example, actually, because
Okay.
um, yeah, because I'd love to explain just a little bit, like, how do you do this? Like,
Yeah.
what is anchoring, right? So, um, the way to first practice is to pick an emotional destination that you want. So, okay, do I want to feel calm? Do I want to feel that joy? happiness, right? I think joy and happiness are a little bit different for me. Acceptance, forgiveness, whatever it might be. So let's just choose calm as an example, because I feel like we all need a little bit of calming right now. So what you would do is you would pick a time in your life where you truly felt calm, where you just know in your physical body and in your emotional body where you felt really calm. So you would just close your eyes and allow yourself to be in that place. Where are you? Who are you?
I can tell here, I'll tell you where I
Oh, yeah.
am. Do you want to just do this
Let's
with
do
me?
it. Yeah.
Okay. So I am closing my eyes, a place where I felt calm. I am sitting on the edge of a lake up in Glacier National Park, and there's all these really amazing mountains behind, like in front of me. And I worked there one summer, so I didn't have any like responsibilities. I didn't have a house. I hadn't met my husband and kid yet. And so I just was like very free and sitting next to this. I had no worries because I
Okay.
didn't
I
have
want you
any.
to I want you to sit there for a second.
Okay. I'm sitting at the lake.
Are you by yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What kind of weather?
Sunny, perfect Colorado blue sky,
Okay.
except it's Montana blue sky.
And not blue sky. Now this calm, where do you feel it in your physical body? Describe what you're feeling sensationally.
I can feel it in my stomach. My stomach feels settled. My shoulders don't feel like they're up in my ears. And I actually just got goosebumps a little bit when you said that.
Mm.
So I would say my skin, I tend to get goosebumps a lot when I am in
Okay.
like a happy place.
So Jamie, I want you to sit on that lake. Feel the relaxation of your belly, the relaxation of your shoulders, maybe even that feeling of the prickles on your skin because the sun feels really warm. When you feel that you are at the peak of what calm feels like in your body, continue to visualize where you are, what you see, what you feel. Feel it in your body. At the peak of that experience, I want you to touch each finger to your thumb, like in that mantra that we just discussed.
Am I continuing to do this?
Yeah,
Continuing
do
to
it about
repeat?
one more time.
Okay.
Okay. You can open your eyes.
Mm.
So obviously this was very quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even that quickly can make a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really cool about this is the more that you do that, so the more that you bring yourself back to that lake where you are, where you feel the relaxation of your belly, your
Mm-hmm.
shoulders, your skin, and then you at the peak, you touch. The next time that you do this mantra,
Mm-hmm.
your brain is actually going to take you to that lake, whether you see it or not.
Okay, I'm going to try
You
this
might
later.
notice, right? So this comes with repetition because we're literally, it's like what is it, Pavlov's dog, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the more that we do something on repeat, think, feel,
It's the
whatever.
doorbell that literally just
The
went
door,
off.
it's literally the doorbell, right? So it's like, oh, I feel relaxed. My stomach just untightened. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
my shoulders feel a little more relaxed. That's weird. Like, oh yeah, it's so subconscious. It's our subconscious is about 98% of our
Mm-hmm.
souls, right? And a lot of our programming and how we show up, a lot of those stories, those imprints have been downloaded are in the subconscious. So what anchoring does is there's this thing called the critical factor. Think of it like a line that divides like an iceberg, right? That 2% of our conscious mind, our egoic mind, from our 98% of our subconscious. By passing that critical factor into the subconscious, we can re-download. So what you did is you literally just downloaded an anchor, right? So we utilized a memory, something that's back either on our conscious or subconscious, to then explore how we felt on an internal level. And then we downloaded an action. So this is the action. Now I can do the same thing with scent, right? So there's more science behind like aromatherapy. You hear that all the time. We know that like you put oils in a diffuser and it smells good, but why, right? There's a few factors. One, you're imprinting a trigger or an action with a memory, with a feeling. But also a lot of things like essential oils, for example, when they're sourced correctly or created correctly, they have specific chemical components to them that react with our body, with our limbic system in our brain, that then create an emotional response. So lavender, for example, that's everyone knows like lavender is like a bath, that it feels calm, it's relaxing. It has a chemical component in it called lanolin, which responds with our limbic system to actually downregulate the nervous system. So what we can do, same thing, right? You're a kinesthetic learner. So the touching for you, like maybe you do this mantra to feel relaxed, right? And there's of course other energetic components to mudras in general, right? But just a simple action. It could literally just be, so when I was a kid, I'm totally going on a tangent. I think it's so fascinating.
It's okay.
When I was a kid, I had a lovey, like a little blanket, or no, I'm sorry, it was a doll. And she had yarn as hair. And there was one piece of yarn that I would just twiddle between my fingers. And this is actually something that also downregulates the nervous system anyway. But
is it always the middle, like the thumb and middle finger?
It was. I'm just tapping your fingers. It's also when you touch your lips with your finger. By like obsessive chapstick people like me, right? It's actually like relaxes your nervous system.
And we live in Colorado, so it's dry.
Yeah, right? I would do this as a kid, and I actually just found that doll because we just moved. I just found her, I unpacked her, and like I saw her, and I could almost feel in my body the inkling to like do this with the hair actually fell out. And when the hair fell out, I stopped using her, I guess. My mom told me that. But it just shows that our body, we're like on autopilot with a lot of this. So if we can retrain our body, right? Okay, I want to feel calm. What tools do I have? All right, I have my fingers, right? This is something I always have with me. So maybe I download this as my anchor. But maybe I'm like, I really want to utilize scent and I have it in front of me. We have to be careful with anchors because if we're really in a challenging situation and we don't have that anchor there, whether it's like a visual or we don't have the oil.
You don't have your lovey as a little kid.
Right? But we want to utilize it as a tool. You know, I can pull out that oil and then I not only have that like chemical hormonal response in the body, but then I also have that anchor of that memory of that lake. Yeah. And I can feel my shoulders relax. So it's on such a subconscious, like deep level. And I think we as humans, we're sometimes looking for that really quick, tangible fix. This can in a way be it, but it's training ourselves to also dig deeper into our subconscious and see what's going on without having it be scary. Yeah. Because sometimes there are some scary things down there and we have to be mindful. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I love that. I think that's so fast. I mean, it all makes sense. It fits into a lot of the work that I already do with my clients. And I know that you and I have talked a lot about, you know, these different techniques and things like that. And so it makes sense to me because you are, again, I talk a lot about retraining your brain. And I think to have these different tools and techniques in our toolbox is so important because we need them, you know. And it's funny when you were talking about that, Brighton, my daughter, never used a binky because I had talked to other moms who were like, it's great. And if we lose the binky, if the pacifier is not with us, right
now with my daughter,
yeah, then it's like, they're like, and it's a disaster. Like we're out at a restaurant, we can't find the one of the 800, you know, then, so it's like teaching them other ways to calm down. So she never took one. It wasn't that I was like so against it.
Daughter, because we see this in kids so much because they're learning at such a fast rate. With my daughter, she's 2.5. I see anchoring every day in her, and it's almost like a smack in the face of like how amazing it is. But you know, she goes into her room and sees her crib. It's a habit that's been installed, right? She's like, I want my blankie, I want my binky, I want my specific sound on my sound machine. Those 3 things, she hears it, she feels it, she knows in the time of day, Or else if it's not the same, she like freaks out because that's her way of, she's attached sleep and calm in her brain to these things, these actions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really amazing book. It's not about anchoring, but it's a similar concept. It's called Atomic Habits. Have you read it?
No, but you're the second person to tell me about
My
this
gosh,
book
I'm
recently.
obsessed. If you're like a sciencey structured, like I just love the blend of structure and spirituality, but
Mm-hmm.
by James Clear, and he actually has a really incredible newsletter every week as well. But it's essentially our brain has trained ourselves. Okay, if I'm always, let's say, I want to get rid of my sugar habit, right? But I've trained myself that when I get home from work, I see that it's 4:30 p.m. I know that there's a cookie in the cabinet. It's the time. I see the time. That's like my trigger to go, okay, I'm hungry. My stomach, I might get a craving.
You're
And then
speaking to me right now.
my brain knows that I'm going to feel good after I eat that cookie. The brain is always like, I want to feel better. I want to feel good. I want that thing. And I've trained that good means eating a cookie at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it's things that happen that we don't even know it's happening. And so, your wellness challenge, I love it. You're introducing all these different modalities. And a lot of this has to do just with science of changing our habits.
Totally.
Yes, this is like a spot check in the moment where I can be like, I'm feeling anxious. I want to feel calm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But also, where are some of the cues in my life that are showing up that are so autopilot that I don't even recognize it.
Mm-hmm. It's
It's
like my
pretty.
water. It's like I'm just realizing this. So I have an alarm that I use for like water, because when I'm working at home, you know, when I was working in the schools, there was a rhythm to the day, right? There was always like, there were certain meetings and there were certain things, and you had the bells, and lunch was the same time every day and all of that. And then when I started working from home, I was like, I'm not drinking enough water. I'm not doing these things that I was intuitively doing when I was on more of a scheduled like routine. And so I started using an alarm a couple times a day to drink water and to take like 5 minutes to breathe. And now I've started to notice that like that water alarm goes off and I automatically start feeling calmer. And it's not, and I haven't done anything yet, but it's just because I know that like the breath work is coming, right? It's so, yeah.
Oh, it's all related, right? I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, we're talking about subconscious programming.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about habits, limiting patterns or
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, even. Like belief systems also come from just repetition, right? Like you said, I see the alarm, I know to drink water. And there was a time where that wasn't
I'm going to
natural,
drink water right now, by the way.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I need to hydrate to be great right now. There was a time where that probably wasn't natural, right? You had to set an alarm and you had to essentially create a visual cue for yourself. That's
Mm-hmm.
anchoring,
Mm-hmm.
right? You see or you hear your alarm and you know your body's like, I need water. And then there's an emotional response to it. When I drink water, I feel more energy. I feel good. I feel, ready to go. I feel more focused,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be, right? My body feels more balanced. So what we're doing is we're taking all of that that's happening on autopilot and we're becoming more aware. And that's ultimately what all these practices are.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching, wellness, yoga, it's being more mindful and being more aware in our mind, in our body, in our soul, in our subconscious, and utilizing it rather than letting it affect us or control us. We can then kind of feel more empowered to utilize that information and that data. So,
That's so awesome.
yeah.
Well, and one thing I just want to acknowledge, because we are in this time right now where so many people are feeling dysregulated. And just one thing that I think is important to note is that our bodies like consistency and habits and schedules. And I think we especially see there are certain personality types that probably lend themselves to that like to be more of a thing. But my daughter is definitely one of those where she gets out of her routine and her habits, it totally affects her mood. And I think for a lot of us, like during this pandemic, we had to readjust our schedule. We had to readjust our habits. Our nervous system got heightened because it didn't know what to expect, because we were doing something different. So for those of you out there who are listening to this and you are thinking and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now, That's why. It's because our nervous system likes these patterns and habits. And that's why some of these negative patterns and habits are created in the first place, is because we like these rituals and these patterns. Our brain likes to organize things into and compartmentalize things. And so when we can change our habits, we can then change. It's like that, that Atomic Habits
Love
book.
that you brought that up, because also think about, people are really struggling right now in so many different avenues of everything going on. But within COVID closures, let's just use yoga as an example, right? For the person that their habit was going to a yoga studio every day at 6 a.m., that was the habit that was pulled away from them. They might have a really hard time doing yoga at home, because their brain has literally been trained to say, okay, I see the yoga studio, and my body gets a physical response to remember what it feels like after a yoga class when I'm in Shavasana, where I feel good. I feel ready for my day. That's what it's craving. And so when we try to replicate that in a different place, we don't have those tools. It's really hard. Your basement might have a totally different energy, and you might be, when you see your basement, you might see your laundry and actually feel stress rather than the calm that you're looking for, right? And I think that's a lot of the times why we have a hard time with home practices or getting into rituals when things have been disrupted. And so again, I encourage people to just find what is your form of learning. Like, are you a visual person? Are you an auditory? And then, all right, what is missing within COVID? What habits would you like to create? How do you want to feel? You can utilize the tool of yoga, but maybe it's experimenting doing it outside or in a completely different environment, that when you do feel calm, or bring yourself back to that memory when you feel really grounded in your body, or you feel really grounded that's not in the yoga space, and anchor yourself in that moment, whether it's with a scent or a yoga pose or a physical movement or a touch, and see what happens when you first anchor yourself in that feeling, train your body to respond, and then do yoga in your basement. Right? So it's about playing around, and this might not work for everyone, or you might not get it right away, but I think it's also through repetition, trying things on like a pair of pants, seeing what works for you. And also, just, this is a time of self-study in the world, and also in your habits and how you are showing up. And that subconscious programming is in everything, in our habits, in our stories, in our childhood, our ancestral traumas, whatever it might be. It's a time for us to just evaluate it and sit with it. And it's not easy stuff. It's not. However, I think it truly allows us to step into our power and take a little bit more control of our healing process, to heal from those wounds and to heal from the subconscious programming, and to feel better. I mean, ultimately, that's what we all want universally, right? Is just to feel good, to feel better, to feel more connected, to feel like we're in purpose and feel like we're in spirit. And, sometimes we attach that so much to these tangible goals without enjoying the prize being in the process towards that goal of like being able to show up and do this work and just learn and let that be a growth opportunity. So I love what you're doing this week, because it's making us just evaluate how we are showing up for ourselves, but also for the world, and just being more knowledgeable about what is actually going on. Yeah.
I love this. Well, I think we could probably chat.
I know, I could talk for hours about this.
We could talk, and you and I could probably just sit down and hang out and chat for like a good 2 days. So all of your info, if you want to talk to Samantha, if you want to know about some of the offerings that she does, if you are a business person and thinking about starting a business, I know Samantha has been really helpful for me in just verbally processing a lot of, and just bouncing ideas back and forth. She's been great about that. So if you have questions about that, her energy readings are really insightful and cool. I know she's got some more information coming up about anchoring soon that's in the works. So if you want to check out what she's doing, her website is yourbrightlife.com. And all that info is in the information there. So you can hang out with Samantha. And I think you're doing oils today, right? As your giveaway.
Yeah. So again, every oil depending on where it comes from, has a different response. So whether it's like a tree oil that's a little bit more grounding, florals tend to be a little bit more like calming, citrus a little bit more energizing, and there's a whole array of emotional response that you can utilize within anchoring. So that's why I'm offering up some essential oils. And if you're interested in learning more, whether it's essential oils or energy or your own limiting patterns, your beliefs. If you have goals that you're just like, I'm stuck in these patterns, let me know. I'm here for support.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. I so appreciate you being here
Thank
and
you
being a part of this.
so much for having me. This is so
Yay!
fun
I
about
know.
it.
Yeah. So fun. So thank you, everybody else. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Thursday. Last day of the Wellness Challenge tomorrow. So keep coming. Keep showing up. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Sam.